Hello, Nigerians. Welcome to the Channels Television's continued coverage of the Osun governorship election 2022. We're live for you at the electronic result analysis dashboard studio right here in Osogbo, the Osun State capital. We will monitoring for you the election and perhaps the outcome. Officially, elections have closed in Osun State. Polls have closed in the over 3,000 polling units of the 30 local government areas of the state. The people of Osun State have decided. They've spoken with their ballot and who will be the governor for the next 4 years. Tonight, Channels Television, in collaboration with Yaga Africa, is putting up these innovations that will bring you the result as it lands on INEC IREV portal, and we are transmitting the result. We're not announcing the result, but we're transmitting the result for you so that you can keep track of whatever is happening across the over 3,000 polling units of Osun State. Welcome on board, everyone. We'll take you through this ride. I will be with your guide, and all through this time until the election and the winner is called, we will be your guide, your eye on the ground, right here in Osun State to give you all the details as far as this election is concerned. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm being joined right now by the Executive Director of the Yaga Africa, Mr. Samson Itodo. Thank you so much, Samson.
Thanks, Sherwin. It's good to see you again.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, this initiative is in collaboration with Yaga Africa, and this initiative we started with in Ekiti State in the governorship election just a few weeks ago, and the intention is simple: to put you in the know, to bring transparency into the electoral process in Nigeria, and we're trying to do just that, especially with what the enablement or what this dashboard can do. And that's why Yaga African Channels Television will be doing this as far as our powers and the law permit us be able to transmit some of the results as they land in the INEC IREF portal. Thank you, Samson. It's been a journey, is it?
It has been. It has been a journey.
From Ekiti, we are here in Osun State. Yeah. For those who were not part of Ekiti experience, what is the electronic result analysis dashboard? What does it portend? What does this mean?
Well, as you said, it's the election results analysis dashboard, and what this seeks to do is to help Nigerians follow the electoral process, in particular, the results collation process. And you know, Sheon, one of the reasons why we developed this was that weakest link in our electoral process, because where manipulations often take place is at the results collation centers. And so INEC, innovatively developed the IREV, the INEC Election Results Viewing Portal, which is a portal where polling unit level results are uploaded, in real time. Electronically. So as soon as polling is concluded, voting is concluded, results are entered into the form, the BVAS is used to take photos of the results sheets, and then those results sheets are now uploaded on INEC's portal. And so Nigerians, and anywhere you are across the world, you can access polling units level results. Previously or before, you have to wait until it goes to the collation centers and then it is announced. But now, there is greater transparency, and we've seen how this has improved the transparency. But it's not every Nigerian that has an email address, because INEC portals requires you to open an email address, log in with your email, create an account. But what Channels and Yaga Africa are doing is to say, for Nigerians, the vast majority of Nigerians who don't have emails, you can just tune to Channels Television and follow the results. It shows you the trends. And this dashboard also audits the IREV. And in Ekiti, one of the things that we found out in Ekiti, that Ekiti has 2,445 polling stations. And on the IREV dashboard, on the ERAD dashboard, we only uploaded about 2,400 results. 88 results were not entered into this dashboard for 3 reasons. One, some of the images that were taken by the INEC officials had blurry images, so they weren't, you couldn't make any sense out of the figures. The second was there were wrong forms that were uploaded on the portal. So on INEC's portal, you're required, the guideline says that it's the polling units level results. But some precise officials of INEC uploaded the form E60E form. So I'm sure it's some miscommunication or some training issue. But the third one was the fact that there were letters that were uploaded on the IREV. And those letters are not love letters. So the public don't think it's love letters. But there were letters that presiding officers wrote indicating that election was cancelled in that particular polling unit. And we've called on INEC. You know, in one way to address this is to ensure that, you know, at the polling unit level, the form E40G, which is used to enter, you know, records of polling units that were cancelled, should be available to presiding officers at the polling units level to enter those results. But we're very glad that we're able to do this now in Osun. Ekiti has gone. Here we are in Osun, the last governorship election before the 2023 election. This election is too important, you know, for election management, for security management, even for citizens. But we're very delighted that we're here in Osun for the ERAD, and we look forward to what the data already tells us. There's a lot happening behind the scenes, but we're very glad that we're able to do this. This is first in time, and you know, all that happened after Ekiti and the commendations that we received, we really celebrated. But we must thank INEC for the support that it provided us, because without INEC, we couldn't have been able to do this. So we thank INEC. It shows some level of transparency of the commission, and to say congratulations to Nigerians, because this is for you and not necessarily for Yaga Africa or channels.
The real deal is you Nigerians, wherever you may be watching, you are in for a different perspective, a different taste to election coverage in Nigeria. Thanks to our partner, Yaga Africa, and also thanks to INEC for allowing us to be able to do this. And a lot has happened behind the scene that you may not be able to see. But of course, what you need to concern yourself is what the technology will do for you. Now, the devil behind elections in Nigeria plays out at night, in the evening, around this period, where election has been transported from the polling unit to the array, from the array to the ward level, from the ward level to the local government area. And people then ballot stuff. They stop the ballots, they hijack ballots, they steal ballots, they destroy ballots so that the results will not stand. Now, everybody now knows that the game has changed. You win or lose the election from the polling unit because of the fact that results are being transmitted from the polling unit level. And you know what? Don't lose a sleep wherever you may be watching, because just tune to Channel Television, because as soon as I enter into this place, I'll give you an idea, but I don't want to enter just yet, so that you keep your dial in, so that you can know what is happening as far as this election is concerned. There are a lot of results that we are already entering, and I tell you, it's already giving us a pattern, giving us a trend, giving us the performance of each of the candidates in this election. But we'll focus, of course, on some of what matters to you. We give you those things that matter. And for the first time in Nigeria, we are able to follow the result real time as they're being collated. As they're being collated by INEC, we're also doing the e-collation right here in this center, and of course bringing you right here on the screen. Something, one thing for me, and the entire team at Channel Television, we are glad we're doing this, and we are hoping that this is going to change the trajectory of our democracy we go, because the more you have a transparency in your electoral process, the more you tend to have a bit of openness of the process. Governance also will be open, and people will have a sense. People will be part of the process, because don't forget something, the people hire, they fire. They should be able to do that in a democracy. And they've not been able to have as much of that voice to say, we hire you and we can fire you if you are in elective office. But when those who are elected know that they can be fired when they are hired, then they put their acts together, isn't it?
Yeah, especially when the process is transparent, because when you make it difficult for politicians to compromise the process, voters assert their sovereignty, because that's what democracy is about. There's a reason why politicians always go after INEC officials to compromise them, to rig elections in their favor. There's a reason why they use security agencies to undermine elections. There's a reason why at elections they go after the result sheets. So what has happened is the new Electoral Act and also this commitment on the part of INEC to ensure transparency. And that is informed by the demands that citizens, have made on INEC. Because if you look, we've made significant progress. And so the fact that citizens are placing this demand and institutions are responding is actually victory for democracy. And we hope that in this election, democracy will win, that votes have been casted, results are being collated, that there is no underhand anywhere. And like you said, if there's anyone out there who is thinking about falsifying figures anyway,
just a time waste.
You're just wasting your time. Because the BVAS technology has taken care of that, makes it difficult. The ERAD also makes it difficult because millions of people across the world are already watching. And I can tell you that like you said, we've seen the results uploaded on the INEC's portal. They are being processed and verified. And in a short while, Seun, you're going to lead us into another realm of analysis and conversation
just
about
like a movie.
data. Yeah, just
the results are going to be broadcasted right here.
But it's important we also emphasize this, that like you mentioned, we are not in a position and a power to declare results. We're not declaring winners here. What we are simply doing is we recognize that INEC has that responsibility. We're just supporting INEC, reach more Nigerians with the information that is already there in the public domain.
And aggregate it.
And just aggregate it and then have conversations around it. And one way it promotes transparency. So we're not making any declaration. This is just results.
Broadcasting what is already in the public
domain on INEC's portal. And if you're out there and you want to log into INEC's portal, you can go there, create an account. But we've made it easier for you. We made it simpler for you.
Yourself,
we made it
through all the 3,000
so interesting. So
it's even very difficult. Anybody can try it, but it's pretty difficult to maneuver and go around it.
But I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, so I'll leave Seun to do that. But there's a lot more interesting data that we have plugged in. Just after it, and when we did our review, and we're very sort of excited about. And we will let the cat out of the bag as you do in your usual fashion.
Well, of course, something appreciated. And of course, we're letting you into the world of the results. So you can see for yourself, simple thing is the fact that some of the results, as they are coming in, you can see there is a pattern that is coming up. There is the mapping that is coming up. And you can then, of course, make sense of what you can see. The local government, that you have the results coming in. And those who are perhaps taking the lead in that election, in those local government areas. Of course, I'll give you a sense of what this means. The numbers, the colors, and what you need to know as far as this election is concerned. Thank you so much, Sam. Please stay with me. Let me bring you up to speed about a lot of things that have happened today. And I will begin, of course, with how the election started and how it is going. For example, we monitor across the different polling units in the state, and we caught up with the governor and the APC candidate, Goyego Oyetola, who voted in Borukwe local government area, precisely in his home country. He voted, and after casting his ballot, of course, he has ideas and thoughts about how the exercise went. Take a listen to the APC governorship candidate in the Osun governorship election, Goyego Oyetola.
Beavers in all the units are working very well. There are a few areas where we've complained that the beavers are not working, and I think they've attended to that. The turnout is massive. That shows that we are not going to have voters apathy. I expect that the turnout will not be less than 70%. So I'm satisfied. And I must equally commend the security agencies for doing a good job. The whole thing has been very peaceful. I look forward to a credible, transparent election. I believe I've worked very hard in the first 3 years, 7 months. I've done very well in all areas. I don't have to start to enumerate. And people have actually reposed a lot of confidence in this administration. So they want continuity. So, and in any case, I did not take that for granted. I went to all the local governments. We have 30 local governments and 1 area office. I visited all of them campaigning. So I worked very hard and I believe I should win the election.
Is the governorship candidate of the APC, and the governor of Osun State is seeking return to office after he cast his ballot in his home country, which is in Boripe local government area. Of course, we will monitor what happened in Ede. That is where the PDP governorship candidate and a former senator, Senator Ademola Adeleke, he was also there out to cast his ballot. We see some of his family members who were in his entourage to the polling unit where he cast his ballot in Ede, because he had he spoke about the exercise and what he thought the process had become so far.
I think INEC has performed very well, because when they were trying to use my fingerprint, it didn't work, and they used my face, bam, and it worked. So that means that they have really improved. Yeah.
So what feelings are you getting from other voting areas, sir?
Well, the feelings I'm getting that everywhere is calm for now, and I hope it will stay like that.
And you are confident of your chances on the ballot?
Big time. Very, very confident. My people love me. Osun people love me. I love you, Osun. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The PDP governorship candidate, Senator Ademola Adeleke. Let's tell you what happened in Ilobu, where the Labour Party candidate and the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Right Honourable Osun Yusuf, he also did come out, well, in a white attire, similar to his counterpart in the PDP. He went there in Ilobu, where he also cast his ballot, and here is thoughts.
This polling unit, we are always orderly, and people always come out en masse to vote, and they have done so today. And I'm not going to start commenting on election that is still going on. We are just like 1.5 hours into election, so I can't comment on election that has just started. The only thing I know for now is that I've just cast my vote. It took me about 10 minutes to do so, and I hope in the course of election that process is going to be improved upon. We all know that, and Nigerians in their streets, if we continue to buy votes, anyway, my own generation is about exiting politics. I just have fear for the future generation. But let me sound a note of warning. If people actually go out today to buy the votes, Nigeria is in problem.
There you have it. The candidate of the Labour Party, Honourable Osun Yusuf. We'll be bringing you some of the other candidates as we have them. But of course, we needed to tell you that there was an early start to the exercise in most parts of the state. You can describe the exercise as largely peaceful, as far as the police and some other observers have given us their account, not only what we saw, but what others also were able to monitor in the governorship election, going from one polling unit to the other across the 30 local government areas. People were able to come out and exercise their franchise. The security operatives joining every nook and cranny of the state, with the military, of course, manning the perimeters of the state. And what we saw was NSCDC also manning the critical infrastructure across the state. You can see people in early hours of the day going through the routine of voting, checking their names on the register, going for the accreditation using the BVAS device, and then getting their ballot paper and casting their ballot in the end. Afterwards, in a lot of places that we understand that the voting has ended and they've sorted and counted the ballot, and results have been pasted in most polling units that we have monitored for you. And we had questions to ask those who are monitoring, especially security-wise, because of the issue of vote buying. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. Johnson Kokuma, who made a stop at some of the polling units, one of the polling units that we were covering the election from, told Channels Television about the arrest and some of the incidents of vote buying. And here is the DIG of Police, Johnson Kokuma, on the issue of vote buying.
Reports so far received from across the states indicate clearly that voting exercise began on schedule, and so far there has not been any reason for complaints. We have some with us. Some arrests have been made in Osogbo here, and some arrests have been made in Ife. You see, so far we have taken adequate proactive measures to see that the criminal elements do not, of course, rear their ugly heads. The police, we've done our deployment. The military have done their deployment. Other services, you can see, as I told you earlier, what we are doing here is not a one-man show. It's not a one-man show. We have deployed personnel from all security agencies. We have deployed personnel from all law enforcement agencies. And you can see we are all going in synergy. We are all going as a team to all the points where, all the voting points, all the polling booths. We will continue like this, at least to give advices, to check our men, see to it that they are doing what is proper.
That's the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Johnson Kokuma, who is in charge of this election right here in Osun State. EFCC was also on the ground, and we saw how they made arrests of some suspect who are allegedly buying votes in Osun State. The arrest made by EFCC is about 3 to 4 men who have been accused of buying votes around Osogbo area of the state, and they are being arrested by the EFCC. The EFCC said that the arrest came through an actionable intelligence and through a digital surveillance placed on some of these suspects, and they have evidence that they were paying for votes. The FCC told Channels Television that these people are going to be investigated further, and they will use the evidence to charge them to court and prosecute them immediately. Those are some of the information coming from the EFCC. Vote buying agents arrested in Osogbo and have now been taken into custody by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. Then the election, one would say, is now being concluded. Don't forget, the election is a process, not only the voting process, not only the result announcement, but there's a lot to election. And part of it is what we're going to be doing right here on Channels Television, bringing you into the loop and giving you an up-close advantage into what INEC is doing. The results are coming into the INEC portal, and right here on this screen beside me is what we'll be giving you an understanding of so far what we have, and at the end of the day, the winner and the losers in this election. But we'll take a break, everyone, and when we come back, we'll dive right into the world of the electronic result analysis dashboard. An initiative that Channels Television and Yaga Africa has put together for Nigerians to be in the know of the results of election as being imputed into the INEC IREV portal. Stay with me, everyone. We take a moment on the program and our continued coverage of the Osun governorship election, especially looking into the result and the patterns and the trend of the result that we have gotten so far. We'll bring you in the loop. Stay with me. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for your patience. We're right on cue for the continued coverage of the Osun governorship election 2022. Let's get right into it. And we get into the analysis of giving you a background of what to expect in the next few hours as far as the results that are trickling in is concerned. Tonight, let's get the analysis started. I'm being joined by an IRAD analyst and a chair of the Yaga Africa Board, Dr. Hussaini Abdul. Thanks so much, Doc, for coming tonight.
Thank you, Shane.
And Professor Bolaji Omitola is also an IRAD analyst and a professor of political science at the Osun State University. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you.
Let me begin by, because it's going to be a long one for us, but for our viewers it will be interesting, because going through the figures and going through the trends and the maps and the patterns might be very interesting, and when the analysis begins, probably they will understand what we are in for tonight. How do you feel, Dr. Abdul, about this election? You also saw how the election progressed up until the end of voting, and now we're getting into these. How do you feel generally about the whole thing?
Yeah, I think we have seen significant improvement in elections logistics. I've been able to travel around about 5 different local governments this morning, visiting different polling units. The turnout has been huge in many of the polling units. And then in terms of elections management, or particularly the INEC officials, in a lot of polling units, they were out quite on time. By 9:30, almost 94% of the polling units have probably set, and voting had commenced in those locations. I think security people, their conduct has been relatively good. There are still concerns around vote buying, or concerns around probably in terms of the management of the polling units. Where some polling units are hugely populated, over 1,000 plus, some are very small, particularly the newer created polling unit, you could have about 45 to 60 people. And in those units, probably by 11, 12, they are done voting. But for the very large unit, you find this kind of challenges. But otherwise, it's been a significant improvement in our electoral process. So far, at least up to the time I left most of the polling unit, but sometimes situations are difficult to conclude on. Yeah.
Prof, your thoughts about the election?
Yeah.
This is not your first time you're experiencing election in Osun State, and you saw what happened in Ekiti. Generally, sociologically, how did you see the Osun people react to this round of election?
Okay, thank you. Just like my colleague said, one significant takeaway from this election is that the enthusiasm of the Osun people in getting to elect even the governor for the next tenure. And we could see that both female, male, gender, they actually troop out even to be part of this election, even the youth. And so we can see a significant improvement. And this is also has to do with the fact that people realize that their votes are going to count. And because of the improvements that INEC has put in place in ensuring that we have a better management of election in this country. And so that propelled a lot of people to come out and to actually see that their vote counts. And so when you also look at the fact that there have been a lot of improvement right from the Ekiti election, especially the introduction of BVAS, that's all taken together, the people began to have a lot of confidence and trust in the process. And so this actually affects. And then another thing is that the Osun people have always been interested in, they've always been very, very interested in the electioneering process. And so we can see that. Again, another thing is that we could see that it's been all devoid of violence, because everywhere has been, conduct have been peaceful. We've not had major occurrences in this election.
Interesting. We need to keep our eyes on this. Everyone, wherever you may be watching, because all through the evening, we're looking at, we're sourcing whatever you're watching tonight from the IREV portal, which is public to every Nigerian. But what Channels Television and Yaga Africa have been able to do is to make sense of and aggregate those results that have been put in the INEC portal and put them in an analysis platform just so that you can make sense of it. And for the first time, you're going to be seeing Nigerian election results being put live as the results are coming, and you get them live, and you'll be able to get analyses as to what these patterns and these results mean. So for those of you who may be wondering what exactly these means, if you're seeing any of the map over there, it tells you that those are where the results have come in so far. Anywhere you see green is where the remaining results are yet to come in. And if you see no results at all, it's going to be in the gray. But look at it. This is the percentage of the results that have so far coming. 24.2% are the uploaded results on our own portal, and the remaining results that we're expecting is about 2,834. That is as far as we have it. So, Doc, this is where we are putting our eyes on. We have 3,763 polling units, and all of those results will culminate into determining who is winning this election. So thanks to INEC, this portal is where we are farming our resource from. What an initiative.
A wonderful initiative, and this is quite commendable. It allows citizens to actually interact with the results as they come in. Unlike those days where you remain in suspense and you have to wait to that ultimate hour where INEC will have to announce the result. But as the result trickle in, if you have the time, citizens are able to interact with that. I think what we try to do within YAGA and channels is to simplify this. Sometimes as the result gets to INEC portal, you may not be able to analyze it appropriately. So we save you that by actually tuning on this, and you get to see the clear analysis of how much percentage of results have trickled in so far, and who is getting what, where, and how. So that really helps citizens to hold the process into account. And at the end of the day, we'll be very sure that whatever comes in, that look, this is actually the result that had come directly from the polling unit. This is what people need to recognize. There is not a result that is being processed somewhere. There's a result coming directly from the polling unit. It's right from the source. So that's what makes this very interesting, Sean.
Absolutely. Prof, your thoughts?
Yeah. Just to add that we must also emphasize the fact that this is live from INEC portal.
Absolutely.
And so it's not something being cooked up anywhere.
Absolutely.
So it's direct from the INEC. And that's another thing for me is the transparency that we can elicit from this. And again, the people will not be in suspense, like he said. And then, you know, the tendency to be agitated and to ask that, okay, what is going on? We don't know what is going on. We see it live and direct. And that puts the mind of people at rest. And then they see that all these things are open. There is nothing hidden.
Absolutely. So you see the IRF portal. Of course, you can interact with it. We're watching right here. And some of the analysis that we're going to be giving you tonight on the program is what you need to know as of now. We'll take a break, and when we come back, more analysis will continue with Professor Mitala and Dr. Hussaini Abdul. We'll be looking at the results that have come in so far. How are the political parties performing? What do you need to know from each of the polling units? How many has come in so far? How many do we have right here on this dashboard? You'll be in the know just after this moment, everyone. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Analysis dashboard. Dr. Hussaini Abdul and Professor Mitala have been speaking with us. Let's get into another realm of the conversation. And before we get into the result and show our viewers what the results are so far have entered, because a lot of people are anxious. They just want to know who is getting what. That's the meat of the matter.
Absolutely.
But let's look at some other issues that are trailing this matter, and it's about the PVCs, because forget the registered voters, because it doesn't matter in the real election. It is amount of the permanent voter cards that has been collected. Osun State gets some kind of a thumbs up. I mean, in the league of other states, over 70% of a voter, in the rate of the collection of voter, the permanent voter cards. Prof, what do you make of this and the mapping that we're getting? In the red is those local government areas below 70% of the PVC collected, and the one in the green is over 70% permanent voter collected.
Oh, thank you, Shion. Overall, Osun State has had an impressive response to PVC collection. And we cannot go too far in looking for the reasons for this. One of those things that we mentioned earlier is the interest that people really have in this election. And of all the elections that we have in this country, we see that Osun State has always been very competitive. And so people feel that they really have to, their impact must be felt in this election. And that actually dragged people to collect PVC. And of course, the areas that are traditionally bigger area in terms of voters turnout, we could see that they have a lot of PVC collection rate. Again, another thing about the PVC collection rate is also that this time around, the youth are being told that they should leave the Twitter and come even to the mainstream. The elections are not won on Twitter, but elections are won on the field.
Someone was making a joke. He said, if you're playing politics on Twitter, it's a theoretical politics. You need to go and do the practical politics. Get off the Twitter on election day and come to the ground and be part of it.
Absolutely, and I want to join him in saying this is a very impressive one. You don't get this in many states, 70%. And if you check this map, only just about 4 local governments haven't been able to meet to collect up to 70% of the
cross that 70%.
Cross that 70%. So I think very impressive, and this is something that other parts of this country should learn from. Yeah.
And so for one of these local government areas, for example, is Elisha East, and of course you can see it gives you the total PVCs that are being collected makes 69%. The uncollected is still huge in Elisha, and Elisha is one of a very densely populated voting-wise in Osun State, and the uncollected 23,000. It's a lot. It's 30% of what is left. Yeah. So if you look at Ife Central, for example, this is what we have. Ife Central is still huge. So it's 68% out of the 74,000. I mean 65% out of the 74,000. And of course, you can see the uncollected PVC there, 38. There are 3 local governments in Ife, the Ife Central, Ife East, and Ife North. Yeah, those 3 local governments. And it means a lot. Some parts of Ife are the swing local government area. Some parts is a battle, and some battleground in Osun State. Ife is very, very important. We get into the mix of the analysis of what Ife means, what Olonruda means, and what Elisha and the other local government means. But let's look at another local government that is lagging in terms of PVC collection rate, and it's Ife North. Look at it there. Ife North gives you 37,000 total PVC available, collected rather. The uncollected is 20,000. Prof, why? I mean, Ife Central and Ife North falls in that category. What do you think may be responsible, sociologically?
Sociologically.
Any explanation to why Ife Central, Ife North?
Okay, when you look at
it's difficult to do
it's possible for us to look at it, because you look at Ife, that's where we have OAU, Obafemi Awolowo University, and so we could be looking at the issue of students not being on campus, it may be one of the factors that is responsible for
and
that.
Majorly, when INEC was counting the collection, it was largely in the last 2-3 weeks.
So,
and ASU has been on strike for the past month. So this could be, but this is a huge number. If the students were around, it could also give us a reasonable turnout, isn't it, Doc?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. If the students were around, it could give a reasonable turnout. It's a very aware community as university students, and they all are probably above because the minimum age for university education is 16. So the majority of them will probably have passed the 18 years of age and probably have registered, and the turnout could increase. I think I'm not too conversant with the sociology of the state, but my impression of this state is that both Ilesha and Ife are part of the urbanized part of this state. Therefore, may have certain level of population density.
Ilesha, Ede, Ife, Osogbo.
Exactly.
They have a seeming metropolitan
nature. so that's part of the crisis. And what we have seen across many of our communities in Nigeria is areas with relative level of the squeezed middle class don't actually bother much about elections. And that's what informed turnout in places like Lagos, in Abuja, and all those places. And so if these are part of the urbanized part of the state, could that sociological factor be one of the reasons why someone will go and register and not go collect the PVC? But whatever it is, I think it's a message, and people from this local government need to check this. There are other elections coming. You cannot leave 30,000, 23,000 PVCs uncollected. These are enough to determine who governs the states.
It's a huge number if you look at it. In if enough, you have a total registered voter of 58,000.
Yeah.
Just nearing 59,000 there. And you have just 37,000, just about half of it. 64% are being collected.
Absolutely.
20,000 are being uncollected. And interestingly, if you look at it, there are just about 10 wards and over 100,000, and you have this number that shows how densely populated. They may not have enough words, but they have a lot of people.
Density, because they are the most urbanized parts of the state, and this makes it really, really very, very important. And I feel that these are messages that we should be taking out to some of these local government from this method, that look, this is really very important. It does not help the state, it does not help the communities, that you have these huge chunks of voter, because by the time you add these four local government, because they are all ranging around 30% and more. So by the time you put that together, you may be actually getting close to 100,000 votes. Or 100,000 potential votes.
I mean, I always tell people, ignore the total registered voters. Concentrate on the parts that have been collected.
Absolutely.
Those are the potentials.
Absolutely. Because you can't vote. I got to some of the polling units, and I see people coming to me and say, oh, they thought I was an INEC official, and say, look, I've registered, look at this slip, but I don't have my card, and they are stopping me from voting. And I'm saying, I'm sorry, you can't vote. This is what the law says. You must have your PVC.
And that's I also think that that's a takeaway from our engagement here, that people who are watching this from that area of all those parts of Osun State will then have to go out, collect their PVC, so that they will be prepared for the next election.
Absolutely. But if you move away from that, so Ife Central, Ife North, Ife South. So the whole of Ife.
Except one.
Except Ife East. So there are about 4 local government areas in Ife. Ife, interestingly, for those who do not know, some people will refer to it as the cradle of the Yoruba race. So that is the seat of power of the Oni Ife, His Royal Majesty Ogunwusi. Now, so you see, Ife East is probably the only local government in the whole of Ife that has crossed the 70% mark. There will be some explanation to that, but let's look at what is in Ife South in terms of what is uncollected, what has been collected, and what it means. Okay, so there we go. Look at it. huge is also
Huge.
63%.
Yeah.
So it's hovering
Yeah.
around the same,
same number.
Yeah. So look at it. There's 56,000 vote compared to Ede, for example. Ede South. So because Ede also, there are some communities in Osun State that have multiple local governments, I mean, with a large population.
Yeah.
Ede has Ede North. Technology is...
and even in Ede there is also about 18,000 uncollected PVCs.
In
Ede
South.
Yeah, yes, I think so. Is it Ede South I'm having, or... No, okay, I'm having what's happening to Ede South? Yes, in Ede South, there are 11,320.
Which is 20%.
Yeah, 20%. Yes.
20%.
All right. So, I mean, this gives you it's just about the 1, 2, 3, and 4 local government areas that hasn't been able to maximize. But Prof, put us through some of the local government areas with the highest voting population in Osun State. We might have an idea of a few of them, but give us an understanding, at least the top 5 local government areas with the highest voting population.
Thank you. For Osun State, we have Oshogbo.
Which has the highest. We're over 100,000.
Ejigbo.
Followed by Ejigbo.
We have Ifelodun. We have Ifelodun. We have Ejigbo. We have Oshogbo. Of course, Ede North is also there. So those are the...
We can also let us see those top 5 local government areas with the highest voting population in Osun State, because they will matter. Now, these are perhaps those local government areas that any politician in this race we want to grab. We want to focus on. That's where they put resources, their time. They've gone to campaign. They try to lobby voters in those areas. And the fall in Ejigbo. One, you talked about Oshogbo. You talked about which other local government area is it?
Ifelodun.
Yeah, you spoke about Ifelodun. And what about Olorunda?
Yes,
Olorunda part
of it.
Yeah. So we have Oshogbo, we have Ejigbo, we have Irekodun, Olorunda. What about Elisha? Is Elisha?
There's one of Elisha.
Absolutely.
It's also part of it.
Yeah. So those are your big 5.
Yeah. I think Iwo too is...
Iwo also belongs. Yeah. So it's those are the big 5. Like in the Nigerian general election, you talk about
Lagos,
the KK states. You talk about Lagos, Port Harcourt, River State, Kano, Kaduna, Bauchi, Rivers, and Lagos State. Those 5. They are the big states. But in Osun State, we have the big 5, Oshogbo, Ejigbo, Iwo,
Obokun.
Olorunda. Those are the big 5 as far as this election is concerned. So let's look, maybe let's see what is going on so far. In terms of what votes that we've seen and how far we have come in all of the voting, because what eventually this gives us a sense, the trend that now, okay, so these are the results that we're getting right now. And so this map is the map of the green is the PDP, yes, I think. The red is the APC. Okay, yeah. The red is the APC. PDP is in the green, and it's showing those who are perhaps in the lead so far. So if you look at it, for example, in Oshogbo, so for that is the trend as far as we have it right now. So this is what you get so far based on the results so far entered onto the dashboard. The total registered voters in Oshogbo is 142,000, but in it is in the lead. The party that is in the green, of course, the percentage of vote so far as far as Oshogbo is concerned. Oshogbo, Doc, 142,000. That is the headquarters of the capital of Osun State.
Yeah, almost like a third of the vote or the voting population. And so that's quite huge, and I think all the major parties' attention will be on Oshogbo and trying to see what is actually coming on. And for those who are following us in this conversation, this is what we have so far. Result as it trickling in, it's not a reflection of the entire vote counted, but they are trickling in, and we will be watching and be looking at how we progress on this. But so far, this is what we have.
So, so far, this is what the parties have garnered, and based on what we have been able to enter onto the dashboard. I showed you Oshogbo, and that you can see the trend analysis there. And so far, the red is the APC, the green is the PDP. It is changing. It will change, and it may not be static because the results have not totally entered. So we're showing you the progression as far as all the results that have been entered on this dashboard is concerned. Another local government that is big, we're looking at the big five, is Ejigbo. So let's look at it. Ejigbo, for example, is 73,000 voter register that are in Ejigbo. So you can see also the trend of the performance of the political parties there. Of course, don't forget the color marking, the PDP in green, the APC in the red. Now, let's look at another local government that's going to be very important in this election, and one of it is Iwo. Iwo is also one of a big one. It's one of the biggest, the top five, with 90,000 voting population possibility there. We'll go into the PVCs collected in that area, but look at it. That is the trend, 90,000. You look at the percentage of the political parties as they're leading. Prof, what are your thoughts about Iwo? How significant is Iwo? For anyone who wants to win this election, Iwo is important, isn't it?
Yeah, this election we have the two categories of the way the local governments, the way people vote, the way things are. For instance, Iwo, normally Iwo is one of the big five, and so for any political actors, you want to concentrate on that. Then, like Oshogbo, normally, traditionally, is always a battleground for the parties. And so we begin to see that the parties are actually doing their own work in ensuring that they are not leaving any stone unturned, even for the traditional areas that are linked to one party or the other. So from what you have seen so far, you could see that the parties are actually ahead on. They are not leaving things for chances, so they are really involved.
So you see, it's becoming head-to-head. If you look at the trend, that's as far as the situation is right now. Things will change. It will not be static until the very last moment when all the results are totally coming for Iwo. Iwo is very important. There's another local government, one of the top five, and I will go there now, which is Irekwadum. Irekwadum is also significant in the scheme of things. It has a very huge voting population as far as the trend, the voting population is concerned. I just hope that this comes up as fast as I wish it could. Okay, so
I'm trying to open it here too.
Yeah, it's showing there. And,
all right, so let's go to all the local government areas. For example, Ife Central. So there you have it. Ife Central, 113,000. This Ife Central, I think, is maybe the third largest or the second largest voting population in Osun State. Look at it there, and look at the progression. Ife, you remember what happened in Ife? In 2018, Ife became a swing because the election came to a stalemate. A winner was not able to be determined. Give us a background on the drama that played out in 2018.
Thank you. 2018, we had the incumbent governor on the ballot. We have Chief Omisore also on the ballot for SDP. Then we have the PDP candidate to this election, Senator Ademola Adeleke. At the end of the day, at the first round, we have a situation whereby we did not have a clear winner. And the reason for that is that the votes that were rejected, we have a total number that is bigger than the difference that we have between the two. The council, the winning vote.
Bigger than the margin between
the leading and the runner. And so there was a need for a runoff election. And so Ife Central was one of the battleground for that runoff election. And of course, it was keenly contested.
There was a political realignment
which actually changed the direction.
Senator Yolo Mishore of the SDP at the time. We saw some kind of realignment. Now he's in the APC.
Not just in APC, he's the secretary of
national secretary of the APC. And so that also played a significant role. How much of a role Ife Central, Ife East, will play in all of the scheme of things? We'll see how that plays out. So far, this will change. It is not static, like I said, but APC and the PDP look at their performance so far based on the results we've seen. Doc?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we are seeing, the trend across, is that this is proving to be a very keenly contested elections. And like you said, we'll be seeing some twists and turns as the results trickle in, because so far what we have in just a few thousands, and so as more results get in, it will begin to feel that. Normally the way elections run is that sometimes some parties have their strongholds and therefore they are expected to do well in such locations, and when they are not, then it sends a different signal, and that's very important for us to understand.
All right, so Ife Central, Iwo, Isokon, these are local government areas that are going to be very important because if you look at it, like you said, Doug, there are traditional APC local government area and there are traditional PDP local government areas. There are strongholds of each of the political parties based on their background, their political leanings and all of that.
But if I may come in, from what we are so far, like I said earlier, this idea of a traditional stronghold is not working now. At least from what we have seen so far.
As things are going
now,
but the result
this is not the total result. We must emphasize that this is not the total result. But from what we are having here, we can see a keenly contested election. The stronghold are getting meted, if I can use that word, at least for now.
It's too early to call. No one can call just yet. No one can announce. No one can declare. What we're seeing is a pattern and a trend in how these results are coming in. You can follow the conversation by most sincerely thank Dr. Hussein Abdul and Professor Omitola. Do stay with me, everyone, because we take a break. And when we come back, we dig deeper into how the political parties are performing. Who is getting what results have come in so far. We keep our eyes on the INEC, IREV, and how many of the results so far that have come in. That will enable us to be able to project and see how much of the results that we can aggregate on the ERAD, then we can move forward. You also can be in the front seat to see for yourself what is happening in the Osun governorship election. It's a continued coverage right here on Channels Television. Stay with me, everyone, but we'll be right back in a moment. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on Channels Television and our continued coverage of the governorship election, which held today. Well, election, they say, is a process, so it's not all over. We're looking at patterns. We're looking at the trajectory, the trends, and political parties have their situation room they're monitoring. And of course, we have the convener of the Civil Society Situation Room, Ms. NLB, who joins us live. Thank you so much. You look tired, but
Thank you
the race is not over, is it?
Yeah, I'm okay.
And of course, a member of the board of Yaga Africa and an ERAD analyst, Mr. Izenwanwago. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Someone was making a joke. He said, we do not know that you're a title chief But it's good to have you back. We were there on the field earlier, but let's get talking. But for everyone who is wondering what this is all about, on the screen is a comparative mapping of the election, first in 2018 and now what we are having. This is not totally populated just yet, but you can see for yourself how things went. So in 2018, the local government areas that you can see in yellow are the ones won by the SDP candidate at the time, Chief Senator Iyola Omishore, and the ones in red, the ones local governments won in by the APC, and the ones in green were the ones won by the PDP. So majorly, we're looking at Ifelodun, one of the very highly populated local government areas, which was won by the PDP at the time. You look at Osogbo, won by the APC at the time. So it has 129,000. It's something that everyone wants to win. Ejigbo also won by the APC at the time. But I mean, it was a keenly contested election. Another very significant one is Ife North. If you look at it, Ife Central was won by the Iyola Omishore of the SDP at the time. One of the highly populated areas in Osun State. What about Olorunda? Is another area that a lot of people are looking out for, and perhaps will go a long way. Anyone who wins Olorunda, for example, has won big, who wins big in Olorunda this time around, will be a very significant win. But you saw what happened in 2018. So put all of these together, if you're looking at this map all together, and perhaps what this means for today, so far, this is what we have. But if you look at it in terms of the horse race and how we are interpreting it so far, we're calling it, we're looking at a 3-horse race, maybe a 2-horse race, with the way and manner things are going as we speak as of now. But things are still ongoing. The results are not totally in, they're trickling in, and as far as they're coming, we're imputing them right here. But let's talk about the election of today. Mr. Nairobi, what did you see? Good, bad, ugly, fantastic? How would you describe the election of today?
I think INEC made a promise, and they said they were going to beat Ekiti election. And I think we're seeing a lot of things like the early materials arriving at the destinations at all the polling units. That was really, really, something that we can give kudos, to INEC for. Most of the materials, you can see, got to the polling units before 7 a.m., and by 8:30, I think majority, more than 90%, or let's say 95% of the polling units had been populated by the team. And then you could see, the security agencies conducting themselves very professionally. The issue of vote buying is one of the things that was noted in many of the polling stations, or polling units. And there was a lot of that complaint. But one of the unique ones that we can say, 2 unique things: peace all over the polling units. We had only very little in terms of any kind of report of incidents. And then you had the beavers. Beavers performed fantastically too. It was a lot of improvement again on the Ekiti election. I think we're going to see, we saw a lot of voter turnout as well. I think that was a lot. And, but one of the things that we thought should have been a lot minimized was the issue of vote buying. But the report was really expansive in terms of, and then the security people still looking away. But another one that was gallant that I thought we can look at was where somebody wanted to come and disrupt the polling unit towards the end of the voting. And that person was arrested by the police force, gallantly too. And they were not really, they didn't manhandle the person, but they arrested and took the person away from the polling areas, from the center. Another is we had monitoring units of the police force that are moving around, and while they were moving around with their bosses, they took, weapons through the polling units, which should not be seen. I think that's a violation, much as we commend their efforts, because they were walking around of the police. We saw the policemen reporting about, looking at polling units that did not have police, presence, and they were rectifying the effect. So I think generally, very, very peaceful election. There was one polling unit that had issues. The late arrival, that was one of the unique ones, because we had general early arrivals, but late arrival of materials and then beavers. And then another group of INEC officials attempted taking beavers from that place to another place where it was resisted. I don't know why you would take beavers from one place to the other, because it will not function for another unit, but that was the only skirmish that was. I think generally we are quite satisfied, at least for now. We are not concluding anything, but it became more peaceful than we anticipated.
Mr. Nwago, would you say the same?
Well, for process, like I keep telling you, Shehu, outcomes, majoring on outcomes are actually for partisans. For election observation protocol, we focus on process. So we want to look at punctuality index. I think INEC have scored good marks. By 9:30, as we have said, 96% thereabout of the polling units were up and running. And so in terms of punctuality index, beautiful. Accreditation and voting, the bimodal, the beavers, as you know, is the focus in this election. We didn't get to hear so much about hitches and all of those things like we talked about in the FCT elections. So I told you in the morning that we expect superlative performance in Osun in terms of process. So I'm getting more exuberant than you now. I'm happy with the processes, voter accreditation, peaceful conduct of the voters, in terms of, and then the maturity and professionalism of the INEC officials in most of the places that we visited, and even from what we're getting from our observers, signify that the 12 weeks of training that the resident electoral commissioner in Osun deployed for training these electoral officials has manifested into good results.
Interesting. Ms. Obi spoke about the security and the conduct. You've spoken about the expectations of INEC. And early in the morning, we were talking about all of this. You said, Sean, calm down. Don't let us be too optimistic about it. Let's monitor closely. And that's what we're doing. And of course, I will go into the area of the overall comparative analysis of Ekiti and Osun, because we need to make that judgment call. We could say, or we did say, you remember, I would say it was a bad outing for INEC in the FCT election, local council election in the FCT. I mean, it looked like it wasn't the same INEC that conducted some past election. When people say kudos to INEC in Edo and perhaps in Ondo, and perhaps there's some changes that are coming into the election, all of a sudden, INEC came up with some election that people will say, whoa, what really happened? And here comes Ekiti. And it does look like, well, INEC seems to have woken up like a musician said, wake up, you know. But now that it looks INEC is working up, what are the, in comparative analysis of Ekiti and Osun, your thoughts, Ms. Ene?
One of the key things that we're looking at was the beavers' performance. And that was when you want to use it in comparison with FCT, you see that it was a shamble. But in Ekiti, it did like 75%. These, I'm not concluding at this point, but I can say that it performed more than 95%. We were even getting, you know, most of the polling units that I visited, beavers was less than, maybe about 30 seconds, was able to identify, you know, or accredit people, which is, you know, what we're looking at. I think they stepped up, though outside Osogbo, I think there were reports from the I mean, there were reports from the observers that a few places were taking like 3 minutes before they could accredit. The patience of the INEC officials who could see that and the way they approach people, I think it was highly professional. But we had said we wanted more than what happened, in terms of the Beaver's performance in Ekiti. And here it did very well. I think one of the areas that we need to look at was the positioning of the cubicles, of the voting cubicles. A number of it were quite exposed. More than 70% of them were quite exposed in a way that reduces the secrecy of the ballot. People were looking over their shoulders, and I think we need to give that. And you are sitting down and looking at the INEC officials and said, are you not seeing it? How can you be looking at the people that is voting? Because it was so close, and then the positioning as well allows people to be looking over their shoulders. So I think a lot of lessons will come from here. They improve from that. The wreck of Osun promised that he was going to beat Ekiti, record. I think he has done very well, because we got reports for observers were at the polling units before, by 6:30, many of the observers have been deployed. And by 6:45, so many INEC officials, they had really set up before 7 o'clock. That's a record. So kudos to INEC Osun and the commission itself. But a lot more can be done.
Ekiti, the voters compared to Osun voters, what are your thoughts? I mean, if you consider also the record of the permanent voter cards that were collected and the rate at which they collected them.
Well, if you look at the voter population, about 1.5 million people collecting voters' cards, and in 30 local governments, as against Ekiti with 16 local governments, making almost at par in terms of the percentage of PVC collection. For Ekiti, it was about 76.5% of voters that had collected the PVC. Here we are hearing about 75.5% also. So I don't want to make a call in terms of comparison about voter. I think that the Ekiti people did not come out the way we expected them to come out in that election. 35.6% is far cry from what we think is useful. And now we can't make a call yet on voter turnout. So we have to look at the percentage of PVC collected and those who eventually come out to vote. Election is a festival. Most of the people you see in polling unit areas may not necessarily be voters. So sometimes when you
just
see
sharing the joy,
they're sharing in the joy. So it's when we don't look at those who turned out to vote and the PVC collection, then we can then make an actual call on voter turnout. Then that comparison can happen. But I'm not sure that we are able to do that right now. Until much later in the
Absolutely. Look at the map so far. What we're having. So far, we're able to make a call on the local governments that we have results trickling in. So far, the much that we have at the moment from Obokun. This is what we have, and this is the trend of the results that we are getting from Eden North. The results that are coming in and what we're getting. Oriade, for example, also, since Edenot is refusing to come up. So this is what we're looking at, and this is what we're having as far as the result that have so far come out. In Ife Central, that is the result that have trickled in so far. It doesn't mean that this is a total result that we are able to that they garnered, but is the total result that have come in so far. Dashboard, speak on it. Some of these results.
Well, if Central and is expected that it will go red, especially understanding the fact that in 2018 there was a lot of dilly-dally in terms of where perhaps the strong man of that area would be giving his will be aligning with, but it's already now clear that he's somewhere, and where he is likely going to reflect in the results that we're seeing now very clearly. So, Ede, of course, you know, the expectation was that it is going to go green.
There's a strong possibility that's what you mean.
So that expectation has not been...
And that's the stronghold of the PDP cabinet.
That's what I'm saying. It's not been faltered. So traditionally, the expectation of many people is that these results will come the way. But like you said, it's too early in the day in terms of result administration and collation. As time goes on, we'll then be able to clearly say whether there are significant or fundamental changes in the way the results are coming out.
Look at Oshogbo. This is how the state of the results so far as we have been able to aggregate and collate. Oshogbo, very significant. And if you look at history, is anything changing as far as you're concerned?
Well, like you said, we can't make any call yet, but it's too close. I don't think it's been this close in Oshogbo. I think that the result that we have now is not a reflection of what the history of results
voting in
Oshogbo.
At least in the last three elections.
In the last three elections.
Yeah.
So let's wait and see what has happened in these places.
Another area that you probably need to look out for is here, Ejigbo, one of the big local government area in terms of voting population. So it's looking like this for now.
So this for now that we keep talking about, we need then to just hold on a bit and see what continues to trickle in and see whether it actually reflects the kind of analysis that can come for these particular areas.
Well, I'll try to see if we can look at what is happening so far in terms of the analysis and the comparison of some of these results. Things, the way and manner things are going. So we've looked at the political parties and how things are going, but then we also need to make comparison in terms of the results so far that have entered into the dashboard. And of course, if you look at Ejigbo, see what is happening there. Look at Oshogbo, see what is happening in terms of the chart comparison there. You can be able to decipher for yourself what you can see. And of course, if you look at Ife Central, look at the figures that so far enter. And if I take you to the map of the chart of how the results are so far coming in terms of comparative analysis of it. So you see the blue and the red and who is getting what. Same thing in Iwo, you might be able to make sense of how these results are coming and what it means altogether. Things are shaping up gradually. So the gray areas of the map are where you have not really have significant entry of the results. So we've had results at least coming from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 12 local government areas out of 30. We're so far, it's a far cry from what we expect.
Even for Oshogbo, with 142,000 vote population, and then you are having just less than about 8,000 of it, where it's still not
less than 15,000. Yeah. But so far, Ms. Enna, before I allow you go, what this means for our electoral process. This is one thing that is always very tiring when you keep waiting and waiting for the result. But the dynamics of this, what do you make of it?
I think it shows that votes are counting. It shows that votes are counting, and as they keep coming in, though we have issues of the vote buying, but it's to show, and then without the violence. Without violence, it means things are coming in gradually, and I'm really excited about this election because the politicians have seen that there is nothing you can do unless you go to the mouth of the ballot. You know, and that is why election is being won and lost. And then the rigging is being narrowed down. We can do a lot more and let results come like this and let people see it. You know, it also shows that there are other people who may not be serious contenders, but that in their home environment, you know, you can see scores that are trickling in. skills, votes are coming in for them. Unlike before, when you see even the person who goes to a governorship candidate or a presidential candidate after voting, you don't see any vote at all. So I think it's going to be a close call. Whatever it is, it's going to be a close call, especially with the two major parties. There might be a close call, but certain things will come.
All right, interesting moment.
Thank you. Well done.
I know you're very tired.
Well done.
I'll allow you go so that you can get some rest. It's going to be a long one.
It's a long night.
We have our eyes right here on the dashboard. Stay with me, Mr. Izenwawagu.
I'm also going back to Situation Room. So
absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll detain Izenwawagu for a moment. Stay with me, everyone. We're still monitoring. So far, here we are. The results are still coming in. And from the map, you can see just how many local government areas results are coming so far. But we're still monitoring for you. Stay with me, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on our continued coverage of the Osun governorship election 2022. Let's look at some other issues that are very important to this election. Of course, we have our eyes on the dashboard and we're monitoring as those results are coming in right at the moment. But let's look at some of the issues that have come up in this election. I'm now being joined by an INEC resident electoral commissioner, one of those supporting Rex who have come to supervise this election. Professor Samegu joins us live here in our studio. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Sean.
And we also have Mr. Femi Adefila. He's a political analyst and a media entrepreneur. Thank you so much, Femi, for coming tonight.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Interesting scenario playing out in Osun State, isn't it?
That's right.
And I think they say that election is the festival of democracy.
That's right.
Was it the kind of situation that we had today, Mr. Adefila?
I would say yes, and I would say no. Proud to the build-up to today, we ought to have a celebration of ideas, a festival of ideas, political parties coming on stage to market themselves. And what do you market yourselves with? Ideas. I will fix this, I will fix that. We didn't have much of that. But to some extent, we had some debates that Channels did and some other media organizations. I had expected much of marketing of ideas that they should interface with people, engage people with people through ideas, because we have a lot of problems in the state, just like we have in Nigeria. So if you are marketing yourself, you are writing your CV that please employers, employ me. I'm a very good employee and I will deliver the goods. You need to market yourself. We didn't see much of that in the build-up to the election. We didn't see much of that. People marketing themselves, candidates coming on stage to say, I will fix this, I will fix that, with data, with statistics.
Could it have been the schedule of INEC? I mean, there was the closeness of the Ekiti election and Osun election, then the 2023 elections, the preparations toward the 2023 election, it was also subsumed the attention, took the attention of these elections. Could it be one of those issues?
I think it's the nature of our politics that we chase shadows and can be very pedestrian at times, because politicians know how to win elections, and they know that Nigerians, we don't really engage them much. I mean, there are instances of people that refuse to participate in debate and they won elections. That shows that marketing yourself is not really a parameter to win an election in Nigeria.
Because that trend is changing now.
It's changing now. I mean, in Osun, we had fair representation. They all participated. I mean, it's kudos to those who organize it and the politicians. I'm making reference to what happened in 2015. I'm proud to that. But the timetable accommodated marketing of ideas. We had about 150 days, and INEC had shifted now 3 months to market themselves, to go around the stage. But because there are other primordial reasons that politicians appeal to, my faith, my religion, where I come from, and which can be very antithetical to democracy and to marketing of ideas. So they play they play those things up, and they place much emphasis on those things than really marketing of ideas. Should be a festival of ideas. That's what politics and democracy should be about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There are a lot of pre-election assessment that was done on what INEC did. For those who describe FCT as a woeful outing for INEC, and Ekiti was a lot of improvement. And Osun, what are the hitches that you experienced today, Prof, as an insider from INEC?
Well, I was privileged to be one of the recs supporting this election, and I was deployed to cover 3 local governments, Olorunda, Irekpodun, and I can't remember the name. Orolu. You know. So I was in 3 of them, and I think I have a fair representation of what has happened. The supporting recs, we have a platform where we are sharing information about what is happening. So apart from the 3 local governments, I can also say that I have an idea of what happened across the 30 LGAs in Osun State. Not to talk of the more focused platform where I talk to all those that are involved in running election in the 3 local governments that I supervised. And what I have seen is that changes occur incrementally. You know, it's not a revolutionary process. So in terms of this incremental, change that I'm talking about, the technology we have deployed, particularly the beavers, perform very well. And I can make a comparison because I was in Ekiti. In terms of the level of malfunctioning that we experience today, and they were quite insignificant, quite insignificant. And in a few places where one completely broke down, we were lucky to have 2 beavers in that polling unit. So voting was not disrupted. Meanwhile, the RACTEC was called upon to fix the malfunctioning one. So the 2 machines effectively were engaged. Deployment, logistics, movement to the to the polling units was brilliant. And I think this is a logical consequence of the success of last night in moving from the headquarters of INEC to the 30 LGAs. And then before 5 o'clock, 95% of the racks were activated, and coppers were exposed to refresher training, on the use of beavers. And more and more, we are beginning to learn about 1 or 2 tricks that technology might play on the users and how we can effectively respond. So in terms of that nightmare that has been the Achilles heel of INEC, I think this election has afforded opportunity, for INEC to build more confidence, in its own logistics, and I think this is very interesting. And because polls opened very early, you then can eliminate some of the consequences that could come with late opening of polls. And I was quite impressed, that despite the huge turnout in many of the polling units that I attended or, tried to find out what was happening, the level of cooperation from voters was simply impressive. I didn't find instances of challenges in crowd management, and people, were quite, responsive in terms of what we called on them to do. But more importantly, we had to also inform people that even if it is 2:30 and all those who are on the queue haven't voted, all of them will be given the opportunity to vote, and therefore they shouldn't panic, about whatever delays or anxiety they were having about the process. And of course, to talk about the current stage, many of the PUs finished counting. I supervised collation at RA level before I came into the studio, and I'm happy that some of the RAs have completed their collation and they have moved to the local government, where we do the next important and probably next to the final level of collation in the series of collation that we need to do in order to determine whether we can make a declaration, you know, by this night or early tomorrow. So I think we are on that incremental, you know, path of change that should increasingly give Nigerians the confidence that their votes will count and that our democracy is on a path to consolidation. Two important things about election. One of them is that the best election is one in which you do not know the winner until the process is completed and the outcome announced. So we are in that particular mood of suspense. So for me, it's a quality of a good election. But more importantly, as we have seen increasingly, a good election also is one in which those who lose understand that they deserve to lose. You know, and I am hoping, given the transparency that we have built into the process, you know, beginning from the several visitations of the chairman of INEC, consultation with different stakeholders, the peace, you know, agreement process, and the commitment made by candidates, and so on. I think, you know, we are on the path to, you know, to determine that. And I was happy to hear side comments, you know, because you go to one polling unit, one party wins, people celebrate, they say, oh, this is what we have been waiting for. You go to another polling unit, another party wins, they celebrate, they say, this is what we are. So I think that is what INEC requires, and it is happening.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from what you said, Prof, if you look at the map right here, it's easy for us to be able to point out to one thing, and it's the fact that the number of results so far that come into INEC's portal, into the IREF, is 3,087 out of 3,763. It tells you something that capturing the result and putting them onto the IREF is very significant. And that's what we are relying on as our resource to be able to put these, the dashboard together. And Mr. Adefila, what do you make about the changes in our electoral process with the introduction of depositing this result in our portal, and of course what China Television and Yaga is doing?
Thank you very much. He said something earlier on that people jubilated we are the one, and those who lose eventually should know that they have reasons to lose. Hitherto we have what I would describe as a trust deficit between Nigerians and INEC, but INEC has instituted some changes in our electoral process that has built confidence, Nigerians' confidence in the process. And that is why everywhere we went today, I monitored about 7 local governments. It was peaceful all through. People conducted themselves, they comported themselves, and they were ready to go through the process. You speak, INEC officials arrived at the polling unit early. They did what they should do, and there were policemen everywhere. Beavers is the magical instrument. And it's a game changer in our electoral process because it has built people's confidence in the process that for this election, my vote will count. And that was why you witnessed massive turnout of Osun State people across the 3,763 units in the 30 local government in Osun State. People came out in large number, old, young. Even the challenged, the disabled, they came out in large number. It was very encouraging. I saw very old people, non-Nigerian, people in their 70s, in their 80s, they all came out. And it's because I was telling somebody earlier on that years ago, vote never counted in Nigeria. Some people will sit down somewhere at the collation center and they will manipulate the process to suit the whims and caprices of their paymaster. But now, with the use of technology, vote now can't. People can now say 100% that whatever I do, the whatever person I vote for, it will count, and the person will enjoy the benefit of my franchise I've exercised in his favor. I think I want to commend INEC for the changes they brought about They have brought massive changes, and I want to commend Osun State people. They really came out in large number, and I want to commend the security agencies, because that can be the big elephant in the room. No matter how dutiful INEC has been, if the security agencies compromised and they are ready to sell their conscience to the highest bidder, that can mar the whole process. I saw them, they were everywhere, and they comply with the rules of the game. So we should commend them, and even the people of Osun State, because it's a peaceful state. We are very peaceful people here. So we came out to exercise our franchise in a very peaceful manner. But I want to commend INEC, and I believe it's a journey. Because it's a journey. We still need to move even beyond this. We need to perfect it the more. We can't say Uhuru yet. We have left Egypt. We have not arrived at the promised land. When we are on our way, we can see it, we can sight it. That in Nigeria, elections will be credible, elections will be fair. Those who win will be given the mandate, and there will be no room for manipulation, aided and abetted by the umpire called INEC.
Prof, where do you think INEC can improve going forward?
Well, in terms of improvement, well, you know, one thing about human development is that it's a continuous process. And you cannot say this is where it ends. And let me, to answer that question, let me go back to what I think is a basic point. I think as an institution, INEC has demonstrated the courage to allow Nigerians to elect their leaders at all levels. And therefore, the kind of investment that has consciously been made over the years is to depersonalize the entire process of election and outcome. And therefore, to rely more on what citizens are saying with their votes. And even to also take away the power from INEC itself in determining outcome. Because, as he said, probably 2003, 2007, INEC officials could determine outcome of election and begin to justify what they have done thereafter. Today it's not possible. You know, it has taken it over. So I am a resident electoral commissioner. I sit in Osogbo. I can't make commitment to anybody because beyond my office that day, I don't move anywhere. The real action point, you know, and I think we should continue to deepen the application of technology, and that there is no limit to improving the functionality of the beavers. And you remember that even in this election, the chairman of INEC had to have a special meeting with the unions in order to rein in, you know, his own power to say, look, we are not going to joke. There is liability for failure. You know, there's agreement. You are going to sign contracts. There's an MOU at the state level. You are going to sign contracts with the EOs. And security agencies were present in this meeting so that you can understand that you are in a contract situation. So I think we need to deepen that process, you know, and firm up the understanding with the Road Transport Workers Union or the different unions, you know, that play fundamental role in our logistics, and where possible, use the army, the military, you know, to do what we are unable to do. And I think our work with the NYSC is something we need to tighten up also. Many of us find NYSC very useful, core members very useful, but we also want to improve on their commitment to training. It's very important because you are talking to a group of young people from the university. Probably they are playing with their phones. They are doing other things, you know, with the kind of facilities they have on their phone. I think we need to have dedicated training, you know, and rein in, you know, the power of the NYSC as an organization, so that prospective core members that we are deploying take their training seriously. You know, I think these are the areas of improvement.
I'll probably ask you, as we wrap up this segment, to look at where there are possibilities of improvement in our electoral process. As Prof has mentioned a few of the issues. What are your thoughts on how we can improve the electoral process?
Thank you very much. I was about to say that, you know, success is a journey, not a destination. as it were. And there will always be room for improvement. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. I saw something today that really excites me. I arrived at Ward 2, Unit 2 at Ifedon local government around 8:15 this morning. And I saw something that I've never seen in our electoral process. INEC officials, they brought out the rules of the game, and they read it out in English with an interpreter interpreting in Yoruba, spelling out the details, crossing the T's and dotting the I's of the process. That if you do this, you'll be running foul of the law that guides this rule. This is what you should do. I think they should emphasize that. They should communicate more. There's room for communication. Prior to that, electorate must be aware of the rules of the game. If there are changes in the rule, they must be aware. There must be proud communication between the people and INEC as an umpire and as the body that organizes our election. They need to deepen communication between the people and the body. Then beyond that, I think generally, I know there have always been improvement even in technology, because it's a pervasive industry, and we should continue to upgrade even beavers. Today, I just witnessed itches in about few local government, few polling units, and with dispatch, those beavers were replaced. And there were tech guys on ground to attend to those systems. And honestly speaking, I think if this attitude, what is most important is the attitude. If they believe that they have a responsibility to safeguard our electoral process and to ensure our democracy is credible, then with that mindset and that attitude, they will always seek improvement and strive towards it so that we can achieve improvement in the electoral process.
I must sincerely thank both of you. Prof, I know it's been a long day. Professor Zamego, INEC President and Electoral Commissioner, and our very good friend, Mr. Femi Adefila, a media entrepreneur and a political analyst. Thank you so much indeed for coming on.
Thank you.
We take another break, everyone. Our eyes are on this screen, and we're monitoring the results as they're coming. There's still a lot of gray areas of the map that are yet to be filled. We're hoping that these results, as they're coming, you'll get the map populated for you. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on the Channels Television's continued coverage of the Osun governorship election. Let's get some more perspective into all of this. But for a moment, focus on this. So I'm showing you a map of the horse race. We were saying it might be a 2-horse race, 3-horse race, but so far this is what we have as far as this election is concerned. But let's get some more insight into this election. I'm now being joined by a political counselor to the British, to the British ambassador, isn't it? High Commissioner in Abuja, Jonathan Bacon. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Shane. Very good to be here.
And Mr. Larry Arogundade is an IRAD analyst. Thank you so much, Mr. Arogundade, for coming in.
Thank you very much, Shane.
Appreciate it. Jonathan, what's your, you've been monitoring Nigerian elections and Nigeria's politics. From your own point of view and from the High Commission's point of view today, what are your initial, because the election is not over, what are your initial analyses?
Yeah, thanks, Shane. So I've been part of a team that's come from the High Commission to observe the elections. So we've had a team that we've deployed to the 3 senatorial districts. So we've been out all day observing the process and have had the chance afterwards to discuss and to share views. And so our role as observers is we're obviously neutral in this process. We're here to support democracy and to support a free, fair election, a transparent election, and that's what we've been doing. So initial reflections, I think, are actually very much in line with what you've heard from other people. So the turnout has appeared to be good in certainly in the places that we went to, and very peaceful. So we observed various polling stations, large turnout in some of them, a peaceful process. The BVAS technology seems to have worked very well in most places, and the process so far and the atmosphere has been very calm. So as part of our discussions before the election, we met with the security agencies. We also met with many of the candidates in the election and discussed with them. But the process so far seems to have been very calm. As others have mentioned, and I saw that the EFCC have picked up a few people, our observers did notice some instances of what could potentially be vote buying, but that would, certainly wouldn't be occurring everywhere. And I know that you've mentioned that so far in your coverage already. But generally, as you say, the process is still ongoing. There isn't a final result. I know that results are being counted and collated. And our role as international observers is to just look at the process and see what's happening in order to support democracy and support free, fair and transparent elections. And so that's what we will continue to do as the results are being collated. So.
Interesting. Mr. Arugunade, what are your initial thoughts? We were discussing off the camera yesterday about the people of Osun State, their orientation, their worldview, the sociology of the people, the traders, the students and all of that, and how they react to an election atmosphere. But is it alien or is it far from what you know? Did you see a different Osun people today?
Well, not necessarily. I think that what we've seen today, we've seen some level of enthusiasm on the part of the party faithfuls who went out, to vote. And to that extent, we can say that it reflects the trend that we were analyzing before now. Of course, it's when we have the overall results that we'll be able to then go to peculiarities or particulars of how, the voters, behaved. But even from the results that we've seen so far, I think to some extent they tally with possible projections of how the people were likely to vote. What I saw in a few areas that I went around in Uriade, for example, was the fact that very early in the morning a lot of people had come out, many of them quite young, who had been active in the campaigns. And they were already at those polling booths very early in the morning. Some you had fairly large crowd, some larger crowd, maybe because we had 1 or 2 or 3 polling units in the same area. In some, there were very few people, but the presence of the police were noticeable. And I also noticed that despite some form of hostility between those supporters, few days to the election, which one witnessed, there was some kind of camaraderie. I guess that the supporters of the different political parties realize that any disruption may cause them the chances of their candidates. Maybe they already have some feelers that we now have a new electoral act in place, and things might be different in terms of your conduct. If, for example, you have a violent conduct in the polling unit, INEC under the new electoral act is empowered to take a decision on those results, could cancel them, and that could mean a lot, for the candidates. So possibly the candidates, spoke to their supporters to mind the way they conduct themselves, and we saw, evidence of that. So to that extent, although like I said, I went to a few areas, the projection is that we didn't really have electoral, violence, marring the process. What one would like to see is whether the increase in the number of registered voters would also translate into increase in the number of voters. Because, Osun has been one of the leading states when it comes to registration. We're talking about 1,992,000, close to 2 million registered, voters. And we also had a significant increase in PVCs collected when you compare 2018 with 2022. So we're now looking at a possibility that we might have, more voters. And hopefully, whether we would see a change in the trend of apathy that characterizes our elections. Because what we see over the period is that at the end of the day, fewer and fewer people, are voting.
The issue of, I think, vote buying came up in our conversation, and it has come up today. And he did mention the fact that, the AFCC mentioned some arrests. But I think that we might not have seen a lot of vote buying on the election day today, but apparently, money got shared yesterday, to some of the, candidates. There's a sense in which people feel it's part of our political culture. And what I really found a bit embarrassing is that even those who belong to these political parties, who knew they would still vote for their political parties, still felt the need to have, something, a kind of a sense of entitlement that, we need, to be settled. So we can't use the arrest on election day to actually judge the extent, of possible vote buying. But the positive we're looking at so far is the fact that, and I think that the earlier speakers mentioned this, the early deployment of voting materials, the early arrival of the INEC officials at the polling booths, the fact that the voters' lists were conspicuously displayed, and you saw people, checking their names. If people didn't spend a long time voting, possibly some little time on the queue, but the deployment of technology helped the accreditation process, which was more or less, simultaneous. You get accredited, and then you are ready to vote. So it's when you go back to queue that you possibly, spend some time.
Let me bring back Jonathan into the conversation. What's your appraiser of the Nigeria political scene, if you look at the progression? Because I know the High Commission and the United States Embassy are always very interested. You are partners in also looking into what Nigeria, also you have organizations who are supporting the democratic process in Nigeria. So what's your appraiser of the progression in the last few elections in Nigeria? Now we have 2023 elections coming. Your appraiser so far?
Yeah, thank you. So we have deployed teams to the Anambra gubernatorial elections last year, then to Ekiti this year, and now to Osun. And I think also to pick up on something that's mentioned there around the Electoral Act. I think that the new electoral law, which has come in, which see this election and the Ekiti election are being conducted in accordance with, was, I think, a significant development. And certainly, from our perspective as observers of this and as supporters of Nigeria, the BVAS and the electronic transmission of voting, I think, are important moves forward. Obviously, this election is still ongoing to the extent that the results are being collated. But I think that certainly from what we saw today, with the process, with the role that INAC was playing, with the rollout of the BVAS, I think all of those things combined were very encouraging in terms of the process. And as I said, it was conducted, it was a big turnout, and it was very peaceful and very calm. So I think as observers who support democracy and free and fair elections, I think that certainly many of the things today were very encouraging in that regard.
Let's do some analysis, Larry.
Yes.
So if you look at some of the results that are coming, so this is a segment where we're looking some of the candidates and how they've performed so far, and we'd like to inform our viewers that this is not the totality of the result as far as this local government is concerned. These are the results so far entered on our dashboard, and so far the results that are coming into the INEC portal. So if you look at it, for example, maybe we can take a closer look. Okay. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 turning green. It's a progression, and it might change, because if you look at it, it's looking very close. For example, you look at Oshogbo, for example, you look at how close the race is going. They are in the region of 4,000. The two major candidates that are going head-to-head in that...
I think in the region of 5,000.
5,000, I mean.
5,000.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One is in the region of 5,000. One is still just about 4,000.
One is closer to 5,000 than the other.
Do you see this coming? It's not a totality of the result, but so far what we have entered, it's interesting. Oshogbo has always been APC.
Yeah, it's interesting because if we look at previous elections, 2018, even 2014, Oshogbo had always voted en masse APC, and it's also one of the areas where you have the highest number of registered voters, and winning that state. In our analysis yesterday when we were discussing this, we're also talking about which areas will be battlegrounds and which one will not be battlegrounds. And incidentally, we mentioned the state capital, partly because of the symbolism of it, to say that, oh, if I could be accepted in the state capital, then it might be trend. So there's a sense in which we probably didn't see these, Oshogbo coming, but then we still have to wait for all the results to come in to know if this particular trend would be maintained as far as Oshogbo is concerned, really. And of course, it's quite significant because, like I said, it's one of the areas where we do expect large votes to be cast in this particular election. And then so if we look at 2018, I think this is also interesting because the APC won part of Ede in 2018, but now we're seeing a different trend. But then we're looking at this number of votes, which may not reflect the total. But this is also an interesting result, because if this trend is maintained, then it might have some implication for the total votes, for the overall votes that will be cast, because we need to have at the back of our mind the conditions that would enable a candidate to emerge outright winner, having majority of all the votes, and also having majority of votes in at least 2/3 of the local governments. So if we're talking of 30 local governments, then it means that the candidate must win maybe more than 20 local governments. So we're looking at this emerging scenario, which is quite interesting. Now, it is the votes that will come from those other places in terms of number that will determine. So the thing about election, the tricky part of it is that you might really have large votes in some areas, but when the totality of the votes come in, then the situation, could change.
So that's Ife Central for you, Mr. Ogunade.
Yeah, well, Ife Central.
I mean, that's a stronghold of.
That has changed.
Former SDP candidate.
Yeah. So this to me, I think, was expected. Maybe the gap is what we can be looking at, because Senator Iola Omishore, who was the PDP strongman in Ife, whether central or or west, has since moved on and is now the national secretary of APC. So it's not totally surprising that APC is leading there. And in any case, it has always been, Ife has always been interesting. Even when you go back to the Second Republic, it's always been a strong contest between the, what you could call the, progressives and then the conservatives, and because one has to be mindful of the way we use nomenclature when it comes to political parties in Nigeria. But then from what we've seen so far too, it's still fairly close, because we're talking of 54%, and then 42%, and this trend, might really change.
This is not the final
figure.
Exactly.
These are not the final figure, but this is what we have seen, so far.
Mr. Arogunade, this is another one where the APC seems to be in there.
But then neck to neck. The question really is, this neck-to-neck race, are we going to have it replicated in all the
the local government? Another local government area. Well, it looks the same. The pattern is looking the same.
Yes, it looks the same. Now for Oriade, Oriade is part of the bigger Ijesha land. And what we might be looking at in this result is, to what extent has the, conflict between the former governor of the state who come from this area has possibly, shaped the voting, because we also realize that Oriade is one of the areas where some of the erstwhile leaders of the APC had moved on to PDP. And possibly that is having some implication in terms of the result that we're seeing so far, because these are not just the final results. And
Absolutely.
I think we need to keep emphasizing that.
Absolutely.
But then, if you look also at Oriade, one would expect this. Don't forget that if you look at the House of Representatives, for example, the current member of the House of Reps is from Oriades of the PDP. And you expect some strong showing in that area. So some of the trends we are seeing, in a way, I think kind of justifies the pre-analysis that we have made. Ejibo will be of great interest because Ejibo also have, Ejibo has very huge votes. And this is quite interesting, at least in terms of the gap that we're seeing in these particular elections. I think the percentage there now we're looking at 61% to 36%.
Yeah.
That's
so far, based on the result that we have entered.
That has been entered so far. And that is what we need to let our readers know, that this is not the totality of the votes cast.
Picture of things.
But we're just looking at the results that have so far been entered. And it's important because if we look at the So what we have there are the total registered voters and not necessarily the total accredited voters. It's when we have those accredited voters that we can then begin to project probably more accurately as to likely winner, because we have to deal with those who were accredited and then those who voted for which party out of those that were accredited for this election.
All right.
But so far, interesting, and for close observers of for Osun election, the question would be, are we headed to another 2018 where the winner was determined by less than 8,000 votes.
I mean, it's getting neck and neck, and things are really getting more interesting. The figures are showing us that if this trend continues, we may have a situation where it might be a very, very difficult election to call at the end of the day. But we are monitoring. This is not the entire picture.
Exactly.
This is not the total picture.
This is an election where we would wait to more or less the last
absolutely.
second.
Absolutely. No, interesting. But I must sincerely thank you, Larry Arugundade, one of our ERAD analysts and liaison director of the International Press Institute. And of course, Jonathan Bacon is the political counselor of the British High Commission in Abuja. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Mr. Arugundade, thank you so much. We'll be here for a long time.
I'm sure
but we need to take a break, everyone. Probably a longer break. We'll go back to our normal programming on Channels Television. But do know that Channels Television right here, we're keeping you in the picture, in the know, in the front seat of what is happening as far as this election is concerned. Do stay with us, because not so long, we'll be right back on air with some of the figures, and they're coming in really, really fast. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We'll be back.